Hello everybody, this is Tactical Lich here and welcome to another episode of Total War Warhammer 2 Online Multiplayer Replay. Now, yes, we'll be playing the Dwarf versus the Skaven, and it's pretty much a similar build to the anti-Death Runner build, but there's a little bit of a personal flavor here. You see, we brought the Bugman's Rangers this time. These guys, although they are a ranged unit, they are actually pretty sturdy in melee. With 24 attack, 38 defense, 31 weapon strength, these guys can hold their own against a lot of foes in melee combat, especially with that defense against large charge defense, and most importantly, liquid fortification, giving them 4 hit points per second regeneration without that fire weakness. Also being immune to psychology, they can hold the line against a lot of other threats a lot better than your typical Dwarf ranged units. As for the rest of the build, we have a bunch of miners with blasting charges in the front line, vanguard deployed, 3 rangers, and another unit of bugmans. As the back line, we have a bunch of slayers accompanying some gyrocopters, and for leadership, a barebones lord, nothing but foe seeker, Thane with only the rune of slowness, as well as the runesmith with Rune of Wrath and Ruin and Hammer of Karakteraz. That item gives a minus 40 melee attack as well as minus 30% of weapon strength, so pretty decent in just debuffing the assassins and fending off their initial attack. For the Skaven units, we have a bunch of clan rats with shields at the front line, possibly just to try to bog down dwarven infantry and allow the ranged units to do their job. At the back, 4 plague monks. These guys not as good, not as effective against Dwarf infantry as the Death Runners, but still, with frenzy, physical resistance, anti-infantry weapon strength, they should do decently against Dwarf infantry. Just takes a lot longer to hack through the armor of the Dwarf because, well, they don't have armor piercing or armor sundering and all that good stuff. So let's see how things goes for these guys. As for the range department, obviously my opponent is relying heavily on these guys to kill off the dwarf units. We have a couple warp lightning cannons, great to deal with artillery, and for artillery, this time we have gyrocopters. So great anti-air firepower, as well as these warp luggage cells already firing into the miners with blasting charges. At the back we have some red ogres and some Skaven slaves to protect the artillery. As for leadership, we have Assassin and Deathmaster Snitch. Double Assassin, very deadly against any kind of Dwarven hero squad because you have nothing that's good at dueling assassins other than bogging them down with numbers and bodies. So that's basically it for army builds. Let's get the battle started. Now right off the bat, things are already getting a little bit heated as both armies' range units are firing into each other. Warlocks, Giselles focusing on miners, warp lightning cannons already shooting into the gyrocopters, and I made a terrible mistake here. Dumping them sitting in the forest, I thought they're behind vegetation and get protected by the trees, but no, I situated them too far front, and you can see from afar here, they're not exactly getting protected. You can very well see them exposed from the vegetation here. So, no forest protection or whatnot. The front lines are already going into a messy engagement here. Every Skaven unit are just trying to push towards the miners, trying to break them and push into the back lines. Over here, clan rats just compelling onto the miners who are getting peppered down by Giselles. Over here, these clan rats got hit by the blasting charges. So, fortunately for me, Rangers have, like the regular ones, still have decent melee combat stats. So with the crossfire from the Bugmans, they should do quick work on these clan rats. But unfortunately for these miners, they're getting routed by the double rat ogre charges. Although Dragon Backslayers following up are now hacking upon these red ogres, so it's a decent trade, although they do have the red Warlock Giselles focusing down on the poor naked warriors of the Dwarf. But right now, more Dwarven units are pouring in, the leadership is just beelining for the little artillery pocket at the back. Although more plague monks at the reserve pushing in, now getting held back by slayers, but this one plague monk slipped through, so a hammer of Karak drop down, lowering their melee attack to 0. Basically, they're not gonna get any hits in whatsoever. As you can see, with the decent defense of these Bugman's Rangers, they shouldn't do too much damage, and they're actually taking more damage in the melee. And over here, the gyrocopters are doing what they need to do, firing their steam guns into the plague monks, trying to kill off as many from the blob as possible. But this one over here already down to one model from the warlock fire, the warp lightning cannon fire. It's not able to do too much work. And in the front line, finally the Dragonback Slayers managed to push into the warp lightning cannons and do some decent damage. But I also left my Lord exposed right here to Warlock Giselle fire, so probably he got routed, and now the Red Ogres can swiftly chase it down. But at least the rest of the leadership are now got their way into warp lightning cannons and start hacking the artillery crew apart. And at the very far back, I finally remembered I still have a third Slayer unit, and now they're starting to move forward and trying to get into the front line. Good news is, the back line is pretty much secure, with only one Plague Monk unit being healthy. Now, engaging some Bugman's Rangers, they should not do too much damage against the Bugmans who are regenerating and also just tanking that damage like a chat, since the Plague Monks lost their frenzy and now down to 28 attack. And with more crossfire incoming from the steam guns and some from the Rangers from before, the Plague Monks are not in a particularly favorable situation, especially with the, as you can see, blasting charges going in. And in the middle pocket, finally I secured basically most of my infantry. I mean, infantry firepower. The infantry front line are basically in tatters due to assassins just rushing around killing units, miners getting bogged down by plague monks and clan rats without being able to throw their blasting charges. And over here, the assassin finally got into melee combat with rival high talisman, lowering the attack of the flame, doing some really good counter damage in return. Although the hero squads and the Dragonback Slayers, who are down to the last 16 men, finally successfully shut down the artillery crew. So the tactical objective is achieved, and now it's just a matter of grinding out the melee fight. The issue is Deathmaster Snitch is still here, and as you can see, the flame just died. Just seriously, just died in like what, 10 seconds in contact, down to 100 health now, one backstab and he's gone. Deathmaster Snitch is so good at assassinating the Dawi heroes. It's not even a joke anymore. Like, I mean, he's never a joke, but come on. These heroes of the Dawis are supposed to hang in a little longer than that. Come on. But yeah, other than that, the Runesmith now getting hit by Assassin's Trophy is the next to go. And yeah, things are getting pretty bare bones for the Dwarfs, with only the Rangers secured. Infantry-wise, there's not much left. At least the Warlock Giselles are now getting pushed by the Slayers getting caught, who are able to start hacking them down, finally. These Warlock Giselles almost used up all their ammo, getting 25 kills, that's not too much, but getting decent value. And these ones also getting hacked apart by Slayers, but they also use up most of their ammo. Now, it's basically a bunch of clan rats and assassins versus the world at this point. Over here, finally, the last of the plague monks and clan rats with shields are getting pushed away, so the gyrocopters using up all their ammo can now go to do other stuff, like chasing down routing units with their terrifying, well, not too 66 weapon strength, not too much to actually change the course of combat, but definitely decent in just chasing off the tattered units of the clan rats. While these clan rats are now just chasing after the miners, getting into combat with Bugman Rangers, who with 54 models left should be able to beat back whatever stragglers coming their way. And as you can see, with crossfire coming in, the clan rats leadership just simply can't hold. more clan rats breaking off from afar, only Death Master Snitch and some rat ogres pushing in. And this is a little bit trickier situation. Rat ogres, with their armor-piercing weapon strength and that charge, will do some pretty heavy damage against the Bugmans. But thankfully, with immune to psychology, high melee defense, and some crossfire assistance from whatever rangers that are left available for combat, the rat ogres are quickly dispatched with only, what, 200 HP left? Although this one unit of rangers is now caught in by Deathmaster Snitch, who is slowly cutting them apart. Although Deathmaster Snitch is a very powerful melee combatant, one thing he's bad at is dealing with numbers. Rangers are not that good in combat after all, but the animation of Deathmaster Snitch limits him to kill only, what, 2-3 models at a time? And if you have enough models piling on him, the lack of armor will cause him to be grind down as time goes by. On the far side, gyrocopters pushed off some Giselles, going after the second one now, who is already routing, terrified by the presence of the flying monstrosity machinery of the Dawi. Some Plague Monks came back, tried to get into backlines and hit the Bugman's Rangers, and they successfully killed off quite a few models, but with some crossfire assistance from the Rangers, the Bugmans are able to hold the line. And over here, this one Bugman's Rangers now engaging against assassins, but honestly, the assassins really should have just came over here and start fighting back to back with the Deathmaster. As right now, his low armor means that he will get eventually dragged down by these Bugman Rangers, who are not the best melee fighter, but with numbers surrounding him, and assassins melee defense is rather low, honestly. So being surrounded by units like this means that they will take damage pretty significantly. And right now, the only hope for the Dawi is just grind down the two assassins units right now. Arrows are shooting, crossbow bolts are getting shot into the fray by Bugmans, and now even gyrocopters are charging into combat, doing the cycle rear charging, as Deathmaster is now caught in combat against a bunch of Slayers and Rangers. You know things are getting desperate when even gyrocopters have to commence cycle charging. Like, they're supposed to just sit back and fire at will and maybe chase off routing units, but if you have to rely them to cycle charge to win yourself the game, you know that's basically your last resort. But thankfully this last resort is working, as the balance of power is actually tipping back to the middle. And over here, for some reason, the Bugman Rangers actually managed to pull out on top. With the assistance of arrows shooting and lowering the morale of the assassin, they're able to actually push off the assassin, and now with 30 models left, they are still regenerating, slowly pulling back the balance of power bit by bit by their regeneration, as with these Bugman's Rangers over here. It's just that the Rangers over here who are trying to hold Deathmaster in place finally routed in the face of the triple blade spinning technique. At least the gyrocopters got some time to dispatch these Warlock Giselles, and now Deathmaster is one and only truly alone. Well, this assassin just got regrouped and now coming back for a second round anyways, but being so low and leadership wavering, he's not going to hold in combat for long. And it all comes down to whether Deathmaster can dispatch the Dawi fast enough. And now, as you can see, these Rangers finally routed, and one gyrocopter went down, but Bugman's Rangers standing strong with still 31 unit models. They are holding firm against Deathmaster, and here comes the other Bugman's Ranger unit, going into combat with their really nice painting color scheme, that golden outline on their blue and red garment and shield. They actually managed to rout Deathmaster with a rear charge, and victory goes to the Dawi. Oops. Yeah, first time using the camera, so I'm still trying to adapt. But anyways, let's go into the post-battle screen. Before we go into the unit performances, I would like to thank you for watching the video. If you do enjoy it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe, as I'll be regularly uploading content about online multiplayer tactics and strategies, or wild builds, or general battle replays like this one. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the latest content. And now that we get that out of the way, let's look into the units themselves. For the Dwarf army, the hero core did basically nothing due to my terrible mistake. Basically, all the units got thrown into melee combat, allowing the Lord to be focused down by the Jezzails, and the Thane and the Runesmith got isolated and get hunted down by the double assassins. Neither did the miners do a good job as well, simply since I basically rushed them into melee combat way too fast and forgot to give them some time to throw in blasting charges. So given the heavy pressure from the clan rats and plague bunks, they didn't really manage to do too much here. However, the Slayers earned back their worth. This tactical reserve unit basically entering combat totally fresh against some tired rat units, shutting down a bunch of tattered Skaven unit, and in the end clean up the Warlock Jezzails, preventing them from outputting the key damage against my ranger units. And of course the Dragonback Slayers tearing the rat ogres apart, and in the end also shut down at least one of the warp lightning cannons. Of course, the MVP of today's game are these ranger units. The regular rangers earning pretty decent value overall. This one even getting 101 kills for either bolts or melee combat. Pretty solid stuff, but the MVP of the MPP is definitely the Bugman's Rangers. This one earning a chevron, 1,395 gold worth of damage, beating back a bunch of plague monks, and in the end grinding down the assassin hero right then and there, really pulling back that balance of power, allowing the Dwarf to crawl back in the game. This Bugman's Rangers as well, shooting away the plague monks, fending off some Skaven infantry assault. Having that kind of regeneration really helps in this kind of late game situation where Skavens cannot heal while the dwarves are just slowly getting back their health. And yeah, just being a really sturdy melee combat unit for a range missile infantry. And of course we do have these gyrocopters here. This one getting over 1,000 value, this one not so much, paying the ultimate price due to my mistake in micromanagement. And yeah, that's basically it for the Dwarf army. We'll talk about the Bugman's Rangers a little bit more later, and now let's go on to the Skavens. For the Skavens, the assassins totally carried their team today, just hunting down all the Thane Lords, Runesmith, and in the end did a pretty decent beating on the Ranger units. It's just not enough as they're not that good in bluff fights. And Rangers, despite they exhausted all their ammo, they still have a pretty healthy number. So managed to pull out on top in the end with the help of some gyrocopter recharging. As for the Skaven infantry, not much can be said about them. Some of them earn back their value, but for the plague monks, not quite so. Costing 750 if I remember correctly, they have a hard time punching through the heavy armor of the miners and not really getting their worth. Jezzails got back their worth pretty much, but just focusing down a bare bones lord is not the most cost efficient way to expand their ammo. As for the red ogres, being torn apart by the Dragonback Slayers early, taking heavy damage, really hampered their performances late game as they got beat back by mere rangers units. It is Bugman's Ranger, but still, pretty much a shame on these high attack damage dealing red ogres. As for the warp lightning cannons, not a lot of good targets to shoot at. Yes, they shut down one unit of gyrocopters, but the other was able to fly freely away from their firing range. And the melee units, being so numerous and cheap, are not that afraid of the warp lightning shots. And in the end, they got bogged down by Dragonback Slayers and Runesmith and the hero core of the dwarves. Just not enough to output enough damage. Anyways, let's go into the army selection screen and have a little bit longer talk about Bugman's Rangers. To talk about Bugman's Rangers, let's compare it to the Quarrelers, the highly armored crossbowmen of the Dwarf. At the cost of 40 armor, they are having significantly better melee combat stats, with 10 HP more per model, higher leadership, higher speed, higher melee attack and defense, higher weapon strength, higher charge bonus, less ammo, same range and missile strength. These guys with their superior melee stats can hold a lot longer in melee combat than your typical quarrelers. And on top of that, their charge defense against large, immune to psychology, and liquid fortification means that even if they're fighting against something causing terror like monsters, for example, say crypt horrors or the red ogres that you saw earlier, who are maybe not terror but feared for sure, these guys can still hold the line instead of getting terrified and run away. So as a more melee competent unit among the missile roster of the Dawi, they are great at holding the line against typical disruption units like say light cavalry, like your typical Glade Riders, against dogs, against harpies, bats, undead summons, and Skaven summons. And even if there are monsters who are less armored, they can still hold the line and maybe dish out enough damage to push them back. So basically, the proposed usage of these guys are basically a role similar to the Lothland Sea God. You don't bring a full line of crossbow units of Bugman's Rangers. That's basically too expensive. But you get a couple, 2 or 3 of these guys and scatter them around the battlefield. If there's some disruption units running in trying to stop your quarrelers, rangers, thunders, or whatnot from firing, you throw these guys into melee combat, push off the threat, and allow the other units to safely crossfire from a distance. And yeah, that's basically it for today's video. I hope you like it, and if you do have any comment, please do feel free to leave a comment down below, let me know. Or if you have a replay that you're proud of and you want to showcase, send me an email or join my Discord and submit your replay over there. So yeah, that's basically it for today. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for watching. Tactical Itch, signing out. I'll see you in the next one.